Welcome to Montgomery Talks. My name is Doug Tolman. I'm a senior reporter at Montgomery Community Media. I'm here today with Pete Piringer, who is the voice, the face, the Twitter handle of Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. Welcome, Mr. Piringer.
Yeah, thanks. It's a real pleasure, honor to be here, actually.
You know, I've interacted with you for, I think, 10 years or more, but I really don't know your bio. So could you tell us the 411 on you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And, I spent most of my life, I can still say that, in Prince George's County. I grew up in College Park, but I worked for the Prince George's County Fire Department for 24 years. Most people don't associate me with that anymore. Most folks I worked with have long retired over there. But I started in communications back in the 70s. And I'm also a volunteer firefighter. I happen to be the president of the College Park Volunteer Fire Department, and I've been there since 1969. I started with the Prince George's County Fire Department in communications. Eventually, that led to an office, so still associated with communications, but I was in the office. I started working on some assistant public information work. And, the world was a lot different then. Media was different. Public information was different. It was kind of on-the-job training. There weren't many classes. There weren't any classes, for public information officers, actually. So I started out as an assistant public information officer doing a newsletter and some other things. This was before social media. And eventually that became became the PIO. And the media, if you think back into the 70s and 80s, you had print media, you had radio broadcasts, and you had television. They all had different deadlines. They had different audiences. We, as public information officers, you had different ways of providing that information. I remember it seems like, there was maybe, I think, a half-hour morning news. There was a 6 o'clock half-hour show, and then an 11 o'clock news, and that was it. Now, of course, it's, 24/7. And then I went to the Maryland State Police as a public affairs officer. At that time, Paris Glendenning was a county executive at Prince George's County. He went on, of course, became the governor. He took with him Dave Mitchell, who was the police chief in Prince George's County. He became the superintendent of Maryland State Police. Colonel Mitchell had reached out to me in Prince George's County, and there were some things he wanted to do as a superintendent with the media in the Washington metropolitan area for the state police. So he coerced me to, come over to the state for a while, which I did for three and a half years. But then I came to Montgomery County in 2001, February 2001. Of course, we knew what happened in September 2001. So I was involved with that in Montgomery County. Of course, we responded to the Pentagon on 9/11, and Doug Duncan was the county executive. Dave Weaver was the public information officer for the county. And, there was a couple of pretty significant events that occurred, in Montgomery County.
Sure.
Along the way, Sniper was involved in that. And so then I was here for 8 years and had some great experiences. A couple fire chiefs along the way, a couple different county executives, Mr. Leggett after Duncan. So I was here for 8 years, and then I had an opportunity to go to the District of Columbia Fire Department, Washington, D.C. Fire Department. So Chief Dennis Rubin was the fire chief there. Adrian Fenty had just become the mayor. Obama had just been elected. So, it's a pretty exciting time to be involved in D.C. Now, that is just a whole different, thing down there, that's for sure. It's the district. Everything is very political, and so the fire department's no different. But the pretty cool thing about it is, from a public safety perspective anyway, I had a great experience, but, there's so many law enforcement agencies and other agencies, but there's only one fire department. So, that provided me a lot of access to things and experiences that, were just invaluable. I learned a lot. Then I had left there and went to the city of Laurel. The mayor, Craig Moe, who actually used to be a Montgomery County firefighter back in the day. But I've known Mayor Moe for quite a long time. He was in Laurel. I grew up in College Park.
Right.
But he had some things that he was looking to do from a communication point of view. So he asked me to come on board there, in which so I left D.C. It was a great experience there in Laurel. And then Chief Lohr presented me, the Montgomery County Fire Chief at the time, presented me with an opportunity to come back, which I did. So I'd been away for 5 years and was able to come back, and here I am.
Anybody who follows your Twitter feed, I know, has one question on their mind. When do you sleep?
Well, sleep really is overrated. But, I'm blessed to have, understanding wife and family. I have 3 grown daughters and grandkids now. So they've gone through all those trials and tribulations with me along the way. A lot of missed birthday parties and dinners and things like that. But, the social media really has, it's a blessing and a curse. It's made things easier, but it's made things harder. Harder because it's, around the clock. The expectations are to, provide the information. Some of it in our world, public safety, I think needs to be timely, accurate. We kind of subscribe to, get it first, get it right, and get it out. So Social media provides you with that platform. Now, I'm pretty much just a Twitter person. And, I've advocated, I have an opportunity to teach around the country. I'm an instructor with the National Fire Academy and the National Emergency Training Center in Emmitsburg. And I get to go around and teach, but we talk about social media. And, I tell people that, there's so many different platforms. Things are changing all the time, constantly changing. But just do what you can handle, what you can manage. And so I stick with Twitter. We have other people that manage Facebook, other people that do Instagram, other people, whatever else is out there. We take the website. And so I'm just Tweety Petey, basically. Works pretty good. Now, I tell you one thing, even when I really started in earnest with that in fact, when I was in D.C. Fire Department, we were the first government agency, first department in D.C. government to have 10,000 followers. And so, that was fun. And I know at the time, early years of Mayor Gray's tenure there, they were really trying to get the department heads involved with social media. They were bringing, we had an arrangement with George Washington University and some of the professors there. And, we had a lot of meetings and training going on. So it was fun to be part of that. And, back in those days, you'd ask who has a Twitter account. Nobody raised their hand, so we'd have to walk them through that process. Now, of course, everybody pretty much. But in Pete's world, what that did was, previously the media would call on a regular basis, like every half hour. When you were a journalist, you probably made your calls, cold calls, basically. Sure. And, what's going on, anything going on, and so forth. Well, social media has basically eliminated it. Nobody, when I was in D.C., we had 4 or 5 people in the office that they answered phones. And after a while, the phone stopped ringing. We gave those people other assignments, but, so you are able to communicate with a lot of people in a relatively short period of time. It's challenging when at first it was 70 characters, now it's 140 characters. In previous years, we'd have to go to the school or go to the community group and talk to people, provide them with information. Now we can tweet it out, use a social media platform, link it to something, and give them some pretty good access. So we reach people that we wouldn't even envision before. Mm-hmm. Council members are tuned in, leadership in the department, other agencies, of course, community, firefighters, spouses can pay attention to what's going on. So it's great and it's fun. And, I interact with people all the time that, are followers and run into them in the grocery store or mail, post office or wherever.
Well, according to Twitter, just before we started this, it says you've written 78,000 tweets. And if you do the math, that works out to 1,500 tweets a month. And that's something like 50 tweets a day. That has to put you in rare company.
Well, I don't know. If we did the math from the olden days, when I was making phone calls, I bet you I made more phone calls than that. Mm-hmm. Because of one incident. If you think about, there's 4 or 5 TV stations back in the day, a handful of print journalists, a couple radio stations. I was calling them, probably talking to each of them a couple of times, talking to supervisors and communications, so on and so forth. So all those phone calls. So now people are getting some information, accurate information in a timely way. And I don't necessarily have too many phone conversations. Obviously, people do have some questions, and that's what I want, people to have questions. But I think it gives assignment editors and media folks a sense of how big it or little or newsworthy an incident is. Throw a picture in there or two. They can make some, hopefully some better news decisions. And then you have all these, social journalists or citizen journalists too that have blogs or whatever they're doing. So they can spread the word too. Hopefully it's, we provide them with accurate and timely information.
So was there a eureka moment when you looked at Twitter and said, this is the future, or was it something that just kind of evolved over time?
Yeah, I did see the future. No. No, I just kind of lucked into it. It's like I'm a pretty simple guy, and I'm of a certain generation. This was quite challenging. So I think I kind of got the Twitter thing. I think it really took off when I was in D.C. Fire Department, and like I said, people were just coming on board to it. So it worked very well. And like I said, the biggest thing it did was eliminate those phone calls in the office. So my main audience at first was the media. That's who I interacted with the most. But now it's like, I have this discussion with TV newsrooms all the time. Is like I put out a lot of stuff that they don't care about. Mm-hmm. And they don't necessarily complain about it, but they say, oh, man, you put too much. Well, I don't work for them, number one. I work for the citizens. Right. I'm pretty active with traffic information or wrecks. Most of those collisions will block some traffic. In Montgomery County, that's, people don't like it, but they like the information, I think, and I get that feedback. But also, we're a very active department. We have a lot of resources. We're very robust response in a lot of cases, but, we do a lot of, we're all hazards. So, yes, we fight fires, and yes, we take people to the hospital in ambulance, but there's a lot in between there. And hopefully that comes out in a simple tweet. Mm-hmm. And I think it provides, the community and those that are paying attention, tax dollars at work, basically. And, we're proud of that response. And, it's just a simple little thing. It's just one platform. Obviously, we use mass media. We use, face-to-face contact. We attend a lot of meetings. The chief is very proactive in community engagement and not necessarily just community outreach and public education like we've always done, but community engagement. So we're involved with faith-based groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, civic groups, community groups. So, and each time we have an opportunity to interact and provide some safety information, wellness. We're trying to prevent the 911 call.
Wow. I think now's a good time for a break. We'll be right back. This is Doug Tolman with MCM's Montgomery Talks podcast, and I'm talking with Pete Piringer, the PIO for Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. We'll be right back.
MCM, your community media center, is making Montgomery County a great place to live through programs like 21 This Week. Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show keeps you up to date with the local political scene. Montgomery Community Media. Our middle name is Community.
And we're back. This is Doug Tolman with Montgomery Talks, and we're talking with Pete Piringer, the PIO with Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. So we spent the first part of this discussion talking about how communication has changed. Tell me how fires have changed since you've been active.
Yeah, so, it used to be fires were, back when I first got started, was natural materials. You had the couch, with cotton and, wood. Houses were built with timber and walls had insulation and so forth. So now with the new materials and all the electronics we have, the houses are designed very nicely. They're constructed well, but they're basically stapled together. The wood is glued together, particle boards. Again, the design is and structurally very sound, but in a fire, it's a totally different situation. They tend to burn faster and hotter. We know as firefighters that we, in a raging fire situation, we have about 15 minutes before floors in a home are going to collapse. And if you think about the general rule of thumb is a fire grows in size every minute or so. It used to be that with a smoldering fire, small fire in an older home, you had time to gather your family and escape and get out. 3 or 4 minutes maybe. Now, in 3 or 4 minutes, a room or two can be fully engulfed in flames. So Smoke alarms and sprinklers make a big difference. Obviously, in Montgomery County, we have a pretty strong code, fire code, and building code, I should say. And all new homes, for a number of years now have been required to have sprinklers. So the combination of a working smoke alarm and a sprinkler system almost guarantees that you and your family will survive a fire. No one has ever died in a home that has had working sprinklers. So that, to me, that is just, that is, something that we need to, they typically don't think about that. They don't even think about their smoke alarms. They don't think they're going to have a fire. And most of the people that I have an opportunity to talk to that have had a fire, just about everybody says how surprised they are about how fast the fire was. And it was dark. It's not like on TV, where you can see. So it's fast, it's dark. And that's why it's so important to have a smoke alarm. And if you live in a home with sprinklers, good for you, because you're going to get out. Your family's going to get out.
That's amazing. Getting back to Twitter, you said earlier about Twitter preventing the 911 calls. And you've used Twitter to say a lot of these messages about smoke detectors, about carbon monoxide detectors, about just closing the door, how important they are in fire safety.
Well, our chief and chiefs before Chief Goldstein have advocated, preventing the 911 call. However, we arrived at that. So it would be going to the school groups or civic groups and talking about smoke alarms, escape plans, all those EDIF, exit drill in the home. We work very closely with the school. So, that's still ongoing. So social media gives us an opportunity to, and we have a great website, our community outreach, our community risk reduction section of the department does a great job. We in the fire and rescue service, we do car safety seats, child safety seats. So, we have a great opportunity to interact with new parents a lot of times, and we always give them some fire safety information when we're doing that. A very robust car safety seat program in Montgomery County. But social media gives you that opportunity to link to more information. So our Summer of Safety, A through Z, we have all kinds of great information in there. Well, often things that people don't think of. But, now we're focusing on water safety, pools in particular, grill safety. Of course, we always take the opportunity to talk about fire safety and smoke alarms. And July 1st, Montgomery County has already has legislation in place for carbon monoxide alarms. So it's going to be retroactive, that any home with a fuel-burning appliance or a attached garage must have a carbon monoxide detector as well. So you're going to be seeing a lot of tweets about that, and probably already have. Smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, we always take the opportunity. We've had a couple of recent events involving decks and deck collapses, particularly in Germantown. So, and those have been catastrophic, but both of them were the same. And as it turns out, Permitting Services says that 90% of the deck collapses are because of the ledger board, or where the deck is connected to the house, usually becomes rotted due to weather. Both these cases most recently were, older homes. The decks were about 15 or 20 years old. So they looked okay. They've been painted maybe, but they rotted. So there's plenty to talk about public safety, and it's easy to get the information out to a wide variety of audiences using social media.
What about becoming a firefighter? What kind of efforts is your office or is the fire system doing to try to make sure that there's another generation of firefighters showing up to protect us in, say, the coming years? Yeah,
so, we are blessed in Montgomery County. We have a great community, and so we have what we call combination system, combination career and volunteer service here in Montgomery County. In the Mid-Atlantic region, there's a couple. Prince George's County is also one, but we are the largest accredited combination department in the country. So we have a great community, young people. I got started when I was before high school or in high school. So we have that opportunity. We have a high school cadet program now where high school students can engage in fire and EMS training. We're constantly recruiting and looking for people to become, firefighters, career and volunteer. But you know what? Everybody else in this whole region is doing the same thing. Fairfax, D.C., Prince George's County, Howard County, Frederick. They're all hiring. They all have some degree of volunteer participation. So It's very competitive in that sense, but, we work very hard, and the chief is, working hard at making sure that we make the department reflective of our community. And, we all know how diverse Montgomery County is. So, at one time, when I first came here in 2001, we had probably one of the highest department with the highest percentage of female women firefighters. And it was a little over, it was like 10 or 12% of the department. That's shrunk a little bit. Our department's grown, but that the female opportunities have not. Or the opportunity is always there, but it's very challenging. So we're constantly working on that aspect. But we're fortunate to have training classes, recruit classes on a regular basis. But people leave, and you have to be replaced. It takes a year or so, certainly 6 months in recruit school. But then you're on probation for a while, so you can't just snap your fingers and say, okay, here's your desk and get to work. It takes a while. It's quite a commitment. So, and it takes a long time to go through the written test, the interview process, the background check, the physical, the candidate physical agility part of it. So it's not easy, and it takes a while. Everybody else in this area is doing the same thing. So, we lose candidates, I think, to other jurisdictions, and they lose some to us as well. So, and there's great opportunities for volunteers. And Montgomery County is, I believe they're still the only volunteer organization. They have basically a labor agreement, a contract with the county. It was the first in the country, and I believe it's still probably the only one. And because of that, they basically sit at the table like a union would do and negotiate for things such as training and other enhancements. And those are recruitment and retention tools. They've gotten some great grants, federal grants, and the individual departments do a great job recruiting people from the community. But also, it's very difficult to go through that training. In some cases, it takes years. Whereas, the career opportunities, you're coming to recruit school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. If you're a volunteer, you think about it, you're doing that same training, but at 3 hours a night on maybe once or twice a week. And it takes, quite a while. So, but, everybody does go through the same training, career and volunteer. So we do have highly trained force of career and volunteer.
How many of your volunteer firefighters move on to career positions?
A few. Some of them are career firefighters in other jurisdictions. They might work in, they're doctors and nurses and, things like in a related field. There are a few that do become career firefighters. If we're hiring them, obviously they have a little leg up. They have some training. They have some expertise. They have some already networked. That's the beauty of the high school cadet program. It's accomplishing the same thing. Most of those, I'd say probably by the time they're done with the program, it's junior, senior year of high school. But usually by the time you're senior, they will, if they're not a volunteer when they get into the program, they usually are one when they get out. So same type of thing where you do get some training, you get some emergency medical service training, EMT, can become a paramedic, which takes a couple of years. So, it's all good training. And we have an excellent training academy. We have excellent training staff. We put a lot of emphasis on training every day you've probably seen me tweet out, every day is a training day. And it is. Right. And we are constantly training, and we put a big emphasis on the wellness and safety and preparedness of our people. You have to back that up.
And that training pays off in lots of ways, because it seems as though whenever there's a disaster anywhere on the East Coast, somebody from Montgomery County is going to somehow assist. I know you've got the one task force that goes, is it the Water Rescue Task Force or and some of the others, Urban Rescue? What?
Yeah. So that is the FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Team, Maryland Task Force 1, is one of 28 teams across the country. Yes, they are highly trained. And that does a couple things. It brings a lot of training and equipment expertise to Montgomery County that obviously our people can use in Montgomery County, but also when there's a hurricane or other disaster, they're deployed. And, those people, that team trains regularly. They have a lot of resources. They experience things but they bring that back to Montgomery County. So, it's a win-win situation, really. And that's been fantastic. But that aside, we have technical rescue team, and we have collapse rescue, high angle rescue, bomb squad, fire investigators, swift water rescue, hazmat, hazardous materials, and of course fire and EMS. Then we have a couple different levels of, medical, response. Everybody is basically the EMT, emergency medical technician. Then you have some, paramedics and things of that nature. But now we have evolved into community paramedics or mobile health care. And I think that is a trend that we're going to start seeing nationally. And there's some pretty exciting things that are getting ready to happen here in Montgomery County, I believe, in that regard. But it kind of started a couple of years ago where we looked at, there were a handful of folks that were calling 911 all the time, frequent users. And some places might call them abusers, but, we looked at them as they were calling a lot. So we wanted to get to the root of the problem, so we went and visited. Now we've developed these teams of social with HHS. So we have a social worker, a paramedic, and a nurse, and they go visit these people in a non-emergency situation. For example, there might be some mental health issues or drug abuse or homelessness, or something of that nature. Right. And Montgomery County has a wealth of resources available. All those things I mentioned, there's a program somewhere, and these people, for whatever reason, were not connected. And now we're able to connect them to those programs. And in some cases, they were calling 100 times. And our criteria was, I think, 20 times calling us. There was a number. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it was, but there was a formula for what a frequent user was. We have reduced those calls and expanded the program. So, and then if you marry that with our, if you it used to be you called 911, ambulance would come take you to the emergency room.
Right.
Well, our emergency rooms are busting at the seams. They're busy. Right. We're blessed in Montgomery County to have so many great hospitals, and throughout the whole county. That's not the case everywhere else, believe me. But hospital emergency room is busy. Sometimes people wait. It's expensive. Insurance covers most of it, but it's just ambulance crew has to wait with the patient, till they get a bed or whatever. So we spend a lot of time. So we looked at that also, and we've come up with a program that is getting ready to maybe you can talk to the chief about it, but where we are going to have alternative transportation locations. In other words, EMS units will be able to take people to clinics that are associated with some hospitals. So if you have a broken finger or a non-life-threatening emergency, you don't necessarily have to go to the emergency room. You don't have to go there and sit and wait to be triaged. And as the heart attacks come in, you get put that back farther, and it's expensive. Whereas if you can go to the clinic, you can usually get your finger splinted up a lot cheaper for you and for the insurance company. So it's really a win-win situation. So that program is really coming of age, I think, but it gets back to our community paramedics, and the home health care is pretty exciting.
Well, thank you very much, Pete. I appreciate you stopping by and talking with us. This has been very interesting. Once again, this is Pete Piringer with Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. He's their PIO. I'm Doug Tolman, the senior reporter at Montgomery Community Media, and you've been listening to Montgomery Talks. Join us next time. Thank you very much.